Criminal Justice Meeting Committee to order on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. We'll start with roll call.
Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Long?
Present.
Mr. Lear?
Present.
Mr. Snipes? Miss Peters?
Present.
Miss Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Present.
Mr. Carrico?
Present.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Present.
Mr. Daryl Smith?
Present.
Ms. Zucolo? Mr. Kirkstra? Mr. Hunter? Mr. Collins?
Present.
Mr. Kenneth Smith?
Present.
Mr. Wheeler? We have a quorum.
I have not received anything for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? Any public comment? Going on, I'll take a motion to combine, approve the minutes for November 13th, the circuit clerk's report, the grand jury report, the public defender's report, the probation report, and the coroner's report. We will have discussion on all of them and vote at the end.
Mr. Fairfield.
Mr. Fairfield with a motion, second by Mr. Smith,
Peters.
Mr. Daryl Smith. Okay. Go on, Chief Judge. Nothing from the Chief Judge. Miss Cianci, Circuit Clerk's Office.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good deal, because I've got computer issues this morning. The first thing I want to do is welcome all the new county board members that are on the team, and I would invite anyone that would like to come and see the office and see what we do and how we do it. That would be a wonderful thing. I offer that usually to everyone that wants to be there. The first report that I have to talk about is the end of period listing. And for the new folks, that is all the money that we collect and disperse when we, through all the funds and the assessments that go to all these funds. So this last month, we processed $200,322.44. Does anybody have any questions about that report? Okay. Then we have the state's attorney.
Hang on 1 second, Mr. Hunter.
Good morning, Madam Circuit Clerk. It appears every meeting you indicate that there are computer issues. How do those vicissitudes manifest themselves?
Like, can I go through my reports first and then we can do the computerization?
Well,
If you don't mind?
if that's your preference.
Yes, please. Because I've got all the paperwork here. The state's attorney collection court for November, they collected $6,612.70. So their grand total for the year is $116,000, which isn't really too far off from last year. We still have another month to go. And then the Harris & Harris collection report, there's two different reports. They are the third party that, the outside party, that vendor that assists us. So when we collect the money, or when the cases go to court, and we don't collect the money before like a certain time, the judges set a date. And then if the parties don't pay by the certain date, then the file is automatically lifted electronically and sent to Harris & Harris. They then do their collecting business. And then they also send, they go through the files and decide what to send to the Illinois comptrollers. And they do a project that the circuit clerks call iDrop, which is the Illinois Debt Recovery Program. I think the state uses a different title, but that's our nickname when we refer to it through the Clerks Association. And they are able to hold payments on people's state income taxes. So starting in January, we will be loading files to them. And then when people are doing their taxes, we end up collecting an extra amount of money. In 2015 was the first year we did that, and that was our biggest year, of course, because it was a new program. And now we've settled into a pretty steady income or steady rate. And so that's what the Harris & Harris Local Debt Recovery Program Combination Report. This last month, we collected $55,350. So it's down quite a bit, but Harris has been kind of compassionate when it comes to this line of work right now, as far as knowing that people haven't been working, so they haven't been pushing the issue that hard. So that's where we stand with them. And then there's the open inventory analysis. And what that report shows is what we've turned over to Harris & Harris. So like at the bottom of the page for 2020, you'll see that we've sent 72 DUI tickets, 3 conservation, 34 misdemeanors, 2 ordinance violations, and 2010 traffic tickets. We discontinued sending the felonies because a lot of times those people are in jail for or in prison for quite a while. And then when they get out, they of course have to get jobs and try to, get back into society. So we kind of took those numbers out of the mix per se, because these are more accurate cases that we would be able to collect on. So does anybody have any questions on those reports?
Sandy, you
Yes.
might want to explain that the percentage that they get, that we collect the whole thing.
Say that again.
Explain
okay.
the Harris & Harris, the percent.
Sure. So Harris & Harris, what happens is if there's a traffic ticket, and we'll just use the round number $100. If they owe the county $100, then when Harris & Harris is involved in the case, we add on 30% to that ticket. So that 30% is what Harris & Harris gets. That was a percentage that was created by the legislature for the assistants to do that work. Now, the state's attorney previously in our county did that, but they did a cost benefit analysis, and that 30% for everything that we do, it costs more than the 30% for us to do this kind of work. So it is more cost effective to have a third party vendor handle that part of our business, and then we can just continue doing court business and whatever. So Harris & Harris, they are attorneys. That's it's a legal company, and they do a great job. They're involved with most of the counties up in the upper part of the state. Some of the larger counties also have them as their vendor, and it's just a good relationship that we have between our county and that company.
Okay, Mr. Hunter has a question.
Yes, Sandy, Madam Clerk, I wanted to ask you, is there ever any review of assets at all? Some of the folks that owe us money, might that be something that you could interface with Harris & Harris with respect to assessing what, if I was a bad guy and convicted, et cetera, I have bank accounts, savings accounts, credit union money, property, et cetera. I should be paying, my debt to society, not only with DOC but the county. Is there any component that you have, or would you consider having Harris & Harris to do an asset review?
I think that's exactly what they do, to be honest.
Okay. Are you sure?
I can double check, but that's pretty sure that's what I assume is going on.
Can you get back to me, let me know?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the reports for Ms. Yancey? Moving on to
Mr.
computerization
Chairman,
update.
Peters?
Yes, go
Oh,
ahead, Janice.
Question for Sandy also. Oh, she left.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right, you're on. What is the total outstanding? And I know it changes. How often do you send it to them in bundles? And what is about the outstanding right now that they have that they're trying to collect?
So we send them a file weekly. So we send them a file on Tuesdays, and then they send us a file back on Thursdays, and it's all electronic. They do collect money through their company as well. So that's when we have to compare our reports. And then with the money that we send them and then the money that they send us, that's, so like if you look on our disbursement form, the 3-page with all the fund line items, if you look down at Harris and Harris, for the month of November, we sent them $6,898.21, and that was 85 cases that we collected money on. Then I don't have the collection, like I don't know today, I don't have the number of what we received from them in a check, and I can get a report for you on that if you wish. So then on the open inventory analysis, end of November, that is down at the bottom, you see the grand total. So we've turned over $1 million, $1,084,595 just this year. And every year in gray, that is the amount that we turned over to them. And at the bottom, it's the $6,256,69. So that's how much we have outstanding. That's not including the felonies, like I said, because
Right.
that's when the numbers were a lot higher. And then the third report where I've shown what we've collected just for the month, that's the recoveries report. Does that help?
Yes, it does.
Good.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I remember I was on this committee when you started it, so it's kind of exciting to see how well it's working. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so then since Mr. Rowe became state's attorney, he did start another collection court call. And those people, they've made an agreement with the judge, and they are promising to pay every month a certain amount of money, and that's what that report is. And then if they don't pay, if they default, then the state's attorney's office has a little bit of a, leverage as far as doing a petition for rule or, keeping them in court. So we do, if there is we always refer, if people ask about it, we refer them to the state's attorney's office. Excuse me. And then sometimes they will already be in collections. We might take them out of collections with Harris so that they can do this promise to pay thing. So we're trying to help everybody in every way that we can, but the legislature keeps changing the rules too. And they've also done, like in the last couple years, where if people can't afford to pay, they can petition the court to have the court fees waived. And, while that's helpful to the person, that's not helpful to this, this part of the system. So if that's helpful.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's interesting. And we should talk to our lobbyist about all the different changes, like you were saying, that help, that you have to work around.
Mhm.
They need to tell the legislators that does affect us. So we do have a lobbyist, and we just approved that he gets paid again. So definitely reach out to him and talk to him about that.
Good deal.
Okay, computerization, Sandy?
So the computerizations, right now, we're still volleying back and forth between Courtview and Tyler Technologies. Courtview has been working on getting their part fixed, all the different fixes. Every time that they create you know, the patches for the integration. Then we test it, and then we find where there's errors, and then we send it back, or back and forth. We have a meeting Friday. We had a meeting last week, but not all the parties were there, so there's a meeting Friday, and I will know more after Friday where we are. I have a new person in the department in my office that will be working. She's learned how the testing goes from the former clerk that is retiring. Excuse me. So we should be ready to go for testing as soon as Courtview is ready to give us the file to test.
Mr. Hunter.
With all due respect, Madam Clerk, have you ever had a summit with those folks and have a come to Jesus meeting with them and put them on notice about terminating a contract if that situation has not been rectified?
Well, that has to be done through legal, so if we get to that point, I will talk to Mr. Rowe and we'll go from there.
Well, all I'm saying is that if you're talking to those entities that you mentioned that you're meeting with, there could be a terse message sent to them, and maybe go to the CEOs of those respective companies.
Will do.
Any other questions for Sandy? Anything else for us?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the state's attorney, Mr. Rowe.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to echo Ms. Yancey's comments about welcoming all the new members, not only to the board, but also to the committee. And if anyone ever has any questions about the work we do in the office, how we do something, why we do it that way, you can always feel free to reach out. You have our grand jury report. Those numbers do not accurately reflect the number of case filings, because those only include felonies that have gone through the grand jury. And as everyone knows, grand jury was shut down for a long period this year. Even now, we're back on a reduced schedule. Usually it was every other week. We've been doing it once a month. So that's why those numbers appear to be low, but we're still charging the cases. They're just going through a different process, which is called preliminary hearing, and those are done in the courtroom. And again, I can't thank Public Defender's Office enough for working with us on scheduling the preliminary hearings, because if we didn't have that cooperation, it would probably be a disaster, to be quite honest. So thank you, Ed, and everyone in your office for continuing to work with us on that. At January's meeting, you will have year-end totals for 2020, and that'll tell you the number of misdemeanors we filed, the number of felonies, and how those are broken down into categories. On the collection matter, I would just say, you know, Ms. Yancey's comments toward the end there about things changing which are impacting the county's ability to collect those dollars, and what Ms. Peters said, you know, that's the impact of bad policy in Springfield, you know, hitting local communities. Our current governor and our prior governor cut fees and fines across the board, and what that does is that puts the burden of the system. That puts the burden of funding the system back onto the taxpayers instead of the people that are using the court system, those committing the crimes. As a result, by losing those fines, we have lost teen court, our child advocacy center. That's where they do interviews of children who have been victims of abuse or sexual assault. They've lost a huge chunk of their funding. So it's had real quality of life impact on our community. So I hope that, you know, our new state rep, our state senator, and anyone else can hopefully bring some relief to that and get some of that funding back for those programs. But we are doing the best we can to collect. I think if you look at the numbers from the call that our office has been doing, which has been with Desiree Gore and Jody Trudeau, Nancy Nicholson, John, they go to court, they try to collect what we can. We're probably averaging about 120,000 a year, I think, is probably about what we're at over the couple of years we've done this. We're going to continue doing it. But the fact is, you know, new debt comes on those books every single day. So really, like, being able to grab a number and say this is what's owed, it would be very difficult. A lot of those fines have been owed for years and years and years. Some of them you could probably go back 20, 30 years. Some people may owe fines and the individual is deceased. I think there was one person, and Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one individual had a fine of close to $1 million.
True.
Which will obviously, yeah, so that'll obviously never get paid unless he wins the lotto and we can somehow grab that. So those are not amounts of money that you can ever just take off the books. Like a corporation could just, you know, declare those as a loss or wash them off their books and get back to a zero balance. We can't do that. So I would caution you on determining the success of the program by seeing if the overall number is going down, because in fact the number is probably going up as new debt is added every day. I think we have to look at how much have we collected internally, how much has Harris & Harris collected, and compare that maybe to numbers from before they were engaged. And that would probably be a better indicator of success, at least in my opinion. So anyone have any questions?
Mr. Hunter first.
Yeah. Commissioners, I would call your attention to the offenses and going down, and I can't remember if it was the sheriff's department, if it was Nancy or somebody, I remember Nicholson mentioned the impact of COVID. And I know you have a relationship with Harbor House, but if you go down and take a look at felony domestic battery, and you go over to the city of Kankakee, which I represent part of, is I think somebody indicated, and I can't recall, that there's a correlation with the pandemic, you know, with domestic violence. Can you speak to that? Is there any empirical evidence that would explain that?
There is. Actually, when the COVID pandemic first hit and things started to shut down, we were bracing for a huge increase in hotline calls at Harbor House. They just didn't come. And then you get a month into the lockdown and suddenly we were just swamped with calls, intakes at the shelter, and cases coming through our system. The majority of cases we're getting brought to us now for charges are domestic in nature. And I don't know what else you could correlate it with other than the pandemic, people being stuck in their homes, having less opportunities to really go out and maybe distance themselves from the abuser. But yeah, I think across the board, and it hasn't only been the city of Kankakee that has seen that impact. It's been not only countywide, but you know, the national trends show the same thing. We discuss this at our Harbor House meetings every month.
And Mr.
So it's definitely, it was troubling before the pandemic, because domestic violence is a big problem in our county. It was troubling before, but it's especially increased now. We're getting our victim witness advocates to reach out to the survivors. We have them up until the last couple of weeks when the numbers really started to surge from COVID. We had a new thing where we were going out into the community. So if people didn't feel comfortable coming to the courthouse for services, they could meet us in their own neighborhood. We're really trying our best to connect people with services so they can get out of the abusive relationships. But it's, you know, like everything, it's just really been a challenge, and especially over this last month or so.
And Mr. Lillard's activities?
Same thing. You know, he's been working on all of those efforts. He's been helping me with a project with Riverside Hospital to get therapy into the courthouse for kids who are in the system. Continuing to help recruit mentors for our mentoring program, connecting our office with efforts at the library so people can use the library after hours to complete the diversion program if they don't have a computer. I couldn't be more pleased with his work.
Thank you.
We lost the TV. Hang on one second, Bob. Jason? We lost TV? Okay, we're back. Mr. Snipes, you had a question?
Yes, two, and I think you kind of touched on one, which was the update for the youth program that's in place. But before I get there, I want to, I know in your last sermon to the community and to the board and to the people, there was a plea to respond to mentorship. I wanted to at some point get an update as to where you are with that. But before I address that, the teen court, it says that more than half or 59% of the teen court receive no private fund or funding. 16% of the programs receive up to 1/5 of their funding from private sources, and 11% receives between 1/5 and 1/2 from private sources. And I know our program here was a good experience for youth that had gotten into trouble, because it transcends them from being the troublemaker to now being not a judge, but in the stead of a judge. They were able to be in that spot to not judge others, but to look at the facts and make a determination, and have to, I guess, determine the consequences for their peers. And I think a lot of individuals have learned from that, so I think it's a good program. And with that being said, I think the Illinois Youth Court Association, under the Illinois Attorney General's office and the National Youth Council guidelines, tend to send money in those directions on the national as it is available. But have we reached out to any of those individuals?
So our program was funded through court fines and fees. And when that funding was lost, the program was closed. Teen Court has its own board. It's not something run through the state's attorney's office. We did just partner with District 111 in submitting a grant for the R3 funding to see if we can bring back a teen court. It would have a few different components to it than the original one did, and it would be available to kids, obviously, countywide. So we've done that. I'll pass your other comments along to the teen court board.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Mr. Rowe? You got anything else, Jim?
No, thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Okay. Up next, the public
Excuse me,
defender,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Penwick. Oh. Mr. Lear?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on page 4 of his report, he's got the graphs. But it says 2018 felonies by crime and by agency. Is that something that just didn't get updated?
Yeah, that may have not been updated when the report was put together. I'll check that, though.
Thank you.
On the left-hand side,
Those are definitely our numbers for that grand jury through this year.
Steve?
The only month those don't include are the December grand jury.
Okay.
Mr. Lear?
Yeah.
On the top left-hand side, it says 2020 grand jury stats as of 12/3.
Yeah, so
I do
that
see
just
that.
probably didn't get.
Okay.
It probably didn't get updated on
The
that.
graph
one.
just didn't get updated.
Down there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
We'll
Okay.
take that. Thank you for. pointing that
Mr.
out.
Wheeler has a question.
Thank you. It's really for anybody. I just thought of this. Is there a courthouse shutdown this year with COVID? I haven't really heard. It's kind of shut down anyway during the holiday. Is there a time period traditionally that has happened? Is there not one this year?
No, we don't do
No,
that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, the holiday shutdown stopped. I think last year we didn't do it either.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not
Just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Once again, Mr. Penwick, public defender.
Good morning.
Good morning.
But to also welcome all the new county board committee members, as well as any county board members. Same with Jim and Sandy. I'm available. Just call me at any time, and I'll be happy to answer any question you have. So welcome. The report is pretty self-explanatory. The courthouse has been on shutdown since November 8th, I believe, and it's going to go through the end of the month. I'm sure we've all heard rumors as far as what may or may not happen come January 1st. I do not know, and I'm not part of that conversation, but I am not, Chief Judge Kramer is in the position to make that decision. Excuse me. Just on an aside, a couple quick things. We had 3 people test positive for COVID in my office. They've all gotten through it and have now tested negative. And so we dealt with that, and hopefully that'll be the end of it for a while at least. A couple other things. Excuse me. I just got tested last week, so I was negative as of last week, and I'm sure I am now. I don't know what's going on this morning. I had to let one of my assistants go. He just wasn't performing the way I like to. With the help of Chief Judge Kramer, Chairman Wheeler, the county board, I was able to get an additional $20,000 to hire a full-time person. The previous person was part-time. That person, I hired that person. He just passed the bar. He's a local guy, Chavez Rosenthal. He grew up in Kankakee. He went to Northwestern Law School, and he'll be sworn in on January 14th. So I'm very happy about that. Another one of my new hires, Gina Jones, who is also grew up in Kankakee. She passed the bar last week, or I guess last week, and she'll be sworn in January 14th also. So my office will be in a pretty stable position as of January 14th, and I'll be reassigning the cases, to them, and increases their caseload, and hopefully I'll take off and reduce caseload on my other assistants, and hopefully that'll be a good mechanism whereby we can get this backlog addressed, or at least started. Just briefly, as far as Jim touched on the preliminary hearing that's been going on within the county, along with Mr. Rowe and his assistants who have done a great job coordinating it. I'd also thank the sheriff and the clerk, because this puts a lot of pressure on them. We're calling cases quicker. We're calling more cases. These people are usually in custody, so we have to fast track them, and logistically it just creates a problem that the sheriff and the clerk have been dealing with quite effectively, so I'd like to thank them. I guess that's basically all I have. Given the fact we're in shutdown, I mean, we are moving some cases, so we're going to keep pushing on that, but that's all I have if anyone has any questions.
Mr. Hunter.
Having been on this governmental board since July 15th, I've always stressed diversity and not pointing any accusing finger at all. But Ed, the report you just gave with respect to a recent hire, I can relate to that. My nephew just graduated, May 8th from Loyola University, and I think it was a week ago, Monday, he got word that he passed the bar on first try. But you just indicated that you hired a young man by the name Mr. Rosenthal, and you articulated that you and Andy Wheeler were successful in recruiting him. That's local. We have a bastion of local talent in Kankakee County. Out of the 109,982 people we have in this county, we have people with credentials, commitment, and a lot of abilities. And I just want to say thank you to you guys, and kudos to you guys for taking the initiative to recruit, identify people who have the expertise and have the commitment, who were raised in this particular county and have come back and want to serve the community. And I want to just say thank you, and I appreciate your efforts.
I appreciate that, and I'm not patting myself on the back. Mr. Rosenthal, I had to recruit him basically, and I had to. He was interested in the position, and I was interested in having him, and it took over months to make it all work out. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that.
Any other questions for Mr. Penwick? Okay, thank you, Ed.
Right, thank you.
Up next, probation, Mr. Latham.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
I too want to welcome any new members to the committee, and please contact me anytime if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer anything. Regarding the report, I have nothing really to add, just basically that our staff continues to do a great job making and maintaining contact, the proper level of contact with the defendants. It's not been easy. The Kinky office was hit pretty hard with COVID. We had numerous people had to be quarantined, tested positive, but others stepped up and got the job done. So that's all I have regarding the report.
Any questions on the report for Mr. Latham? Mr. Wheeler?
Thanks. Hey, Tom. Just wondering about your assessment of detention days at River Valley. I'm just curious if you see anything. It looks pretty steady, but I'm just looking at, assessing over this year, last year. It seems like we've got a pretty consistent number. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
That is fair, and actually I was going to speak to that because similar to what's happening with the adult population, the sheriff's discussed several times, juveniles being sentenced to the Illinois Department of Corrections, Illinois Juvenile Justice, we're sitting in temporary detention for about 45 days on average before they're transported or accepted by DOC. And this is costly. If we were paying a daily rate, this doesn't impact us directly because of our current agreement. And our numbers are lower. Our daily population is low. We aren't meeting that 12-bed limit. But if we were paying a daily rate of $125, $150, we're talking, $6,000, $7,000 for each juvenile that's sitting there. But as of right now, again, that we're not impacted by that because of our current agreement. And yes, our population is steady at about 6, 7 juveniles in detention at any given time. I believe with our numbers are leveled off, that this agreement probably will get us through most of fiscal year 22. And I hope by that time that this COVID is behind us and we're back to normal operations. We don't have juveniles sitting in detention waiting to go. So.
Okay, someone on Zoom had a question.
Mr. Carrico here.
Mr. Carrico, go ahead.
Yes. Mr. Layton, first, I would like to ask if you could briefly explain, maybe to the new members and maybe other members that do not know how that works, how the drug court works and the source of funds for the drug related to like tests and other things.
Well, like drug court, obviously there's Drug Free Inc., which does a lot. It's a private board, fundraising board that does a lot to raise money to provide services. But drug court, like regular probation, and is impacted by our collection rate has plummeted, especially as a result. And drug court's affected by this because there's a fee assessed to defendants. Since we've moved closer to no cash bail since the Bail Reform Act went into play in 2018, we've seen our collection rate in our office plummet about 40+% in the last couple of years. So that's impacting drug court. It's impacting regular probation. Everybody put on probation is assessed a monthly fee normally if they can pay it. We collect that. That goes to run our operations. That goes to treatment defendant services for all the defendants. And so thank God for Drug Free Inc. because the funds they raise helps offset that. But it's a huge impact. And now we're watching legislation now. The bill introduced a couple weeks ago. I have it right here, Senate Bill 4025 called the Pretrial Fairness Act, which is moving closer to doing away with the cash bail system totally, making the list of crimes that someone could be kept in and have to post to get out shorter and shorter. And if that goes forward, I think we're going to see that collection rate even go plummet farther and farther down.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Follow up, Mr. Wheeler.
Could you, Tom, maybe like the Sanchez Grant and all of that, with how is that all intermingling with drug court and working and things like that? And I'm not sure everybody knows what that is, so you might explain.
Yeah, we receive a grant through SAMHSA. It's a rather several $100,000 a year grant, which is, again, a huge role in, that's more on the treatment side of drug court, providing residential placement, med management, and things like that. But yes, it's a huge part. And if we didn't have Drug Free Inc., we didn't have that grant. And I hope that grant continues beyond, I think it's done in 2 years from now. But if we can get it extended, if we see that soft money disappear, it's going to impact drug court, which is a very successful program. it's going to impact a lot. I mean, because we're relying based on that because we're not collecting the fees locally to support it.
Was that I want to say $2.1 million grant over 3 years?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. I mean, that's substantial. It's not a little bit.
Huge. Yeah.
It's really the treatment and the monitoring after they've gone through the program. And that's one of the reasons it's so successful is we have this to take care of the back end, correctly? Am I correct in that?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And it's like I said, without it, I don't know. Now we're facing other issues with COVID, with residential facilities closing down, or not closing down, but not accepting people, and we're having all the issues that are related to COVID. But once we get past this, yes, that money's huge in getting individuals into placement, medication-assisted treatment, which is expensive, all that. So it's a huge help.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else, Tom?
No, just if I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Up next, the sheriff. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to the Zoomers. Good morning to the Zoomers as well.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sheriff.
Yes. So first of all, as everybody else has done with the new board members, I'd like to say welcome. And would also like to invite anybody, including existing board members, for a tour of our jail or a ride-along to let you all know what we do on a daily basis. Certainly welcome to do that at any time. Just give us a call and we will make those arrangements. So looking forward to working with you. The monthly report, you know, the numbers, our out-of-county numbers have fluctuated since March. As most of you know, we stopped taking out-of-county inmates and detainees from April through August because of COVID. We averaged 276 out-of-county inmates and detainees in 2020 compared to 379 in 2019. So you can see the discrepancy in revenue that creates. Our local average, which has always been concerning for me, it really hasn't changed from last year. And so that's a little bit concerning. We thought that might be a little significantly less because of COVID, but it hasn't worked out that way. This year we averaged about 270 throughout the year, and last year we averaged 273. So there was a minimal change in the number. One of the reasons, obviously, is the Illinois Department of Corrections, who for a while was not taking anybody, even though they were required to by law. But they chose not to for whatever reason. The governor wants us to enforce all his laws, but if he violates one on his own, that's okay, I guess. So nonetheless, we have about 26 right now waiting to go to the Illinois Department of Corrections. And we've been waiting on that since November 4th. So we continue to house these individuals that should be housed in the Illinois Department of Corrections and are costing our local taxpayers money. So,
have we ever received anything from the state for?
No. Okay. No, that's still in litigation. It's still going through the process. As most of you know, the sheriffs, 102 sheriffs in the state of Illinois, sued the governor, along with thousands of other people who've sued the governor. And he continually refers to those people as snake oil salesmen, but there are legitimate issues out there that he refuses to deal with, and we'll continue to do our job as best we can. But I think it's important to keep this board advised as to what's actually going on in Springfield.
Could you I mean, unless you have it today, how much we are owed by the state?
I believe it's about $304,000 for housing from the day that the initial executive order came out back in March. I think it was March 26th. And the executive order that allowed us to, or DOC to take inmates from county jails was, I believe, August 4th. So it's all those numbers from March 26th through August 4th, and I believe it's right around $304,000. Moving on down the report, our transports were down overall with the exception of medical, which isn't surprising as I've told this board before, and for the new members, we believe that inmate medical care is important, and we want these individuals, when they come into our place, to leave better than they were health-wise. On the sworn side, our accidents are down, our citations are up, our warnings are up, calls for service are up, and the better news is fatals for the year are down significantly. That's a good thing. Obviously, one is too many. Last year, I believe we had 24. This year, we had 9 throughout the county. And then the last part of the report on the revenue, our housing is down, our salary reimbursement is down, and our other inmate revenue is down. If you see the number 4 under section 3, other inmate revenue, that includes the arrestee medical fund. It includes bond fees, which are a fee that anybody who posts bond at the jail pays an additional fee. That is down. Our booking fees are down. Our IDOC mileage is down. That is reimbursement from the Illinois Department of Corrections for transporting these inmates to the Department of Corrections. Obviously, if we're not going to DOC, we're not getting mileage. Social Security reimbursement is down, and our training reimbursement, there really hasn't been much anyway because of employment issues from the standpoint of not needing to send people to training. And the reason these are down, it was mentioned earlier, I think by both Sandy and Jim, Public Act 100-987, which was the Fines and Fees Assessment Act. The state legislature took it upon themselves to almost make it optional for people to pay their fines and costs, because God forbid we wouldn't want to hold anybody accountable. So that affects our money here and every other county in the state of Illinois. So there's some reasons those are down, but we continue to do more with less.
Any questions on the report? Mr. Hunter.
Sheriff Downey, I got a couple things. What's the status of the law enforcement coverage with the situation in Pembroke? You remember there was some discussion regarding providing coverage personnel, and I know that there was a vote by the school board in Pembroke.
Resource.
Oh, the school resource officer.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you,
is
Mr.
still, well, obviously, not many schools are in session.
No, yeah.
So we really haven't done a whole lot with that coverage out in Pembroke. We haven't hired because we didn't want to spend the money, even though it would have been minimal, but we just didn't feel like at that point we had a place out there, so we haven't hired him yet, him or her yet.
Yeah, one of the benefits though was going to be the Citgo gas station.
And that's still, I mean, those are things that we still cover virtually every shift anyway, so that hasn't changed much.
Okay, let me just say this further, that thank you, for providing escort for the national champs, Eastside Junior Football. And, what's really amazing is that when you take a look at all these different department heads, they're on duty 24/7, but there are other ancillary and external activities they're involved in. I know that you're involved in youth activities to the east and Pembroke and points west, and we had a lot of feedback, positive feedback with respect to your services when they came from out of state. Additionally, I'm not sure if you guys are well aware of the fact that the NAACP and the Sheriff's Department have assembled, and I capital A, assembled law enforcement not only in this county in terms of all the local jurisdictions, you know, police chiefs, rank and file of personnel in law enforcement. Even now, he's reached out to Iroquois County, state police, and other entities. In fact, people from even out of the county and other regions of the state who are working together on the different initiatives in terms of enhancing the relationship between community, large C, and law enforcement. It's working. And as you have indicated, it should be a model nationally. But you know, as long as I've been in public service, I've never seen the amalgamation of the law enforcement community coming together with a goal of providing quality law enforcement services and enhancing the relationship with their respective community residents. And I just want to mention that. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Mr. Snipes. Is this to the report, Bob?
Back up on the screen that I needed to, there was a question on the just the report. I noticed there was a in your year of fiscal year 16 and 17, in that inmate telephone fees, I saw it was in 94 or 63. Then it dropped dramatically for about a couple of years, and then it kind of stabilized out in your fiscal 18 and 19, and 1920 was there.
Yeah, so the FCC, who monitors that phone system on a national level, they set the rules for all these inmate phone companies. So what the FCC, and it depends on how much an inmate is charged for a phone call. Mm-hmm. So obviously there are people out there who think that all the phone calls from somebody in jail should be free, and then there's others that say if they're in custody and they're making calls, the jail should get some revenue, or the county should get some revenue from those phone calls, because we're paying people to, I mean, we have costs associated with housing. So the FCC rules go back and forth. In fact, there's one out there right now that I think they're going to vote on whenever they get together, I guess, because of COVID. But yeah, it's an FCC issue.
Oh, okay, so that's up in there. Then I noticed that I guess the reason for the overtime looks like it, or salary reimbursement looks like it dropped significantly by half from the 18-19. So that's due to COVID.
That's because that salary reimbursement that we have, that you see there, is probably the majority of it is probably for medical transports.
Oh, okay.
But we get paid salary reimbursement, mileage, and overtime reimbursement from the feds for transporting to Chicago. Well, if we're not transporting to Chicago, then there's no overtime to be had. So that makes up a difference in our overtime line item budget, though, because we're not paying any overtime. So it's it doesn't hurt us per se, but the revenue's down.
I was wondering what the medical costs were. They exchanging it for, instead of going back and forth to Chicago, utilizing the team that you already have in place and charging it such, it would make more economical sense to me.
Right.
Thank you. Anything else on the report on the Zoom? Moving on.
All right. Vehicles. Realizing that, we are in a position financially that vehicles are going to be difficult this year. We realize that, but I just want to let this committee know that we are looking at some options. We do have, one of the things about this program that we go through this periodically, where we get on a vehicle program and we want to keep our vehicles up to date. We want to keep them safe. And then money hits. In this case, COVID hit. So obviously our funds, our finances aren't where we want them to be. And vehicles are obviously the first thing. Right now we're in decent shape vehicle-wise. We have done a 3-year rotation. The first of that rotation was in 2017. These were squad cars. And I can tell you that our 17s right now have mileage on them ranging anywhere from 75,000 miles to 46,000 miles. So technically they are still under warranty, which is a good thing. But one of the things that we did talk about, and one of our goals was to continue this program so that if we were to purchase 21s this year, we could trade in the 17s with relatively low miles on them and get more money in trade for those. But understanding the position we're in, our vehicle maintenance people are working hard to make sure we can maybe get through this year, or maybe, let's say, at least end of this year, where things may be moving in the right direction, where we can possibly purchase vehicles. So, but I just want to make you aware of it, that right now we're okay, but to make that program work, you know, a number of things have to happen as far as, you know, we want to keep the miles down on the trades so we get more money, on and on and on. So on the other hand, though, corrections is a little bit different story. Those vehicles, obviously with transports, we run those vehicles a lot, and especially to Chicago. Now, the one thing, and Mr. Snipes alluded to it, it's changed a little bit because we didn't run to Chicago quite as much. So the mileage we put on our vehicles kind of slowed a little bit. But we still have vehicles with well over 100,000 miles on them. I would imagine that as this vaccine comes out and as things ease up with COVID, that we will start going to Chicago more and more. And so those are concerns. Obviously, purchasing some corrections vehicles will be significantly cheaper than purchasing squad cars. So if we end up with 2 vehicles in the corrections side, that would help us a lot. But I will come back later when we have a better feel for what's going on inmate and detainee wise before we start asking for money for cars, if that's okay with the board. Unless you tell me to go buy them, I'm good either way.
I would suggest that you put some feelers out and get some prices, so when the time does.
I have some.
Okay.
Yeah, I have some. They're all state bid prices, so they don't change.
Okay.
Other than from year to year.
What buses do you need, or vans?
Those transit vans work for us, and I think they're about 25,000 a piece.
Oh, capacity-wise.
Oh, capacity, they're 10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Yeah. You know, we have a bus that works. We have another bus that the motor's out that's going to cost us about 20 grand to put a motor in. We're holding off at this point just because it's doesn't make economical sense to do it, so.
Go ahead.
Good.
I'm sorry.
All right. No. Jail inspections. So I feel like the poor jail has been inspected more than anything, but it's because of ICE, and it's for us, it's a good thing. We have literally had 2 jail inspections from 2 different entities in the last 3 weeks. We had a jail inspection from the company called Nakamoto, who contracts with ICE, and they inspect us every year. And it was, of all weeks, it was Thanksgiving week from Monday through Wednesday, which we didn't ask, we just did what we were told. And then the week after that, the week after we got back from Thanksgiving, we had an inspection from what we call ODO, or the Office of Detention Oversight. And that, Nakamoto is contracted with ICE, they're not ICE employees. The Office of Detention Oversight is actually a branch of ICE. So you've got an inspection from somebody who is part of ICE, if you will, and then somebody who's not. And quite frankly, the people with ICE, the Office of Detention Oversight, is actually a tougher inspection than the Nakamoto inspection, the contracting. So I can tell you that things went very well. The one thing that we don't want with inspections are what they call deficiencies. In other words, your jail is deficient at something. I can tell you that we had one deficiency with Nakamoto. And ironically, as we were going through the closeout phone conference with all the inspectors on the phone, the deficiency was that we did not have a log to document the water temperature daily for showers. Yeah. And my response to them was, and I was kind, I just said, all I can tell you in being in this business for over 25 years, that if our water temperature in the showers aren't right, we're gonna know about it. So if that was all what they found in 3 days of inspection, we were very happy. I bring this periodically, and if the Zoomers can see this, these are the standards that we get evaluated on from ICE. So out of all these, and I don't know how many pages there are, but out of all those, when we have one deficiency for not having a log to document the temperature of our showers, pretty happy. And credit to the jail staff and the jail administration and all that they do every day to do that. Again, these are things that, you know, we do every day. And nobody likes inspections. We don't like them any more than anybody else. But the one thing that they do, the inspections do, is they make us better, not just for ICE, but for everybody. Because everybody who is in our custody benefits from these standards. So they make us better as a staff, they make us better as an organization, and it makes for better housing, if you will, for everybody, not just ICE detainees.
Mr. Hunter.
Would you hold that compendium up again?
This?
Those are all the standards, right? Hold
Yes.
it up so
Yeah.
people can really see that. So out of all those standards, which are, I'm sure, really quite comprehensive,
yeah,
only one item that they cited you on.
Yes.
How might you be able to share with the general public, especially with some entities who shall remain nameless, in terms of what the findings were? And I'm sure that the plan of correction on that temperature of the water
is already fixed.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that needs to be, shared, because you may recall not too long ago when you and the chairman attended the Hispanic Partnership, and there were entities there questioning you and Andy and moi regarding activities at Jerome Combs. How might you be able to share with the general public about the findings of the regulatory agencies that inspected you guys?
I believe that this report will be available online through ICE at some point, whenever they finish it. I mean, they just left our place the week of Thanksgiving, so when they put all their stuff together, I believe they put it online and make it available.
So how might they get that? How might they?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I've never looked online to go get it, because we get our own copies.
Yeah,
so
had we...
I'll find it. I'll find out and let you know.
Had you thought about putting it on the county website or something?
Yeah, we could. I mean, I guess, some will say, some out there will say, hey, you're doing your job, which is true. That's what we're doing. We're doing our job. But, we do get criticized. And again, sometimes the criticism may be valid. I mean, we're not perfect. I don't believe anybody is, and we make mistakes just like anybody else. But we try to eliminate them and try not to make the same ones twice.
But you made yourself, and the chairman have made themselves available for the public to, it's not inquisition, but, pose questions to you regarding the county operations and your domain. So all I'm saying to you is that the information, facts don't change. And I always tell folks that. And I think that information needs to be promulgated to the general public.
Yeah, I mean, we try to make ourselves available. I mean, anybody that wants, and I've reached out to people before who questioned or been critical, and you know, we have nothing to hide. I mean, there's nothing that we have to hide. Like I said, you may not agree with what we're doing, you may not agree with how we do it, but we have nothing to hide. Simple as that.
Mr. Snipes had a question.
Yes, Sheriff, I probably would agree with you with my experience when working in corrections, that if that water was not sufficient, you would have.
That's exactly right.
You've heard it.
Exactly.
But with that being said, when I worked at Shapiro, we, I think, became the first accredited in the state, and I think it was almost the nation getting an accreditation on mental health. And to me, when you are being, I call them little governmental investigations. When you go through that, it's almost like an accreditation. So it speaks volumes when your people are what I call sharpened by the axe of these individuals that come in and investigate. But when you hold up that book versus the regular jail book, that's the one that I wanted to show, the actual one of just a normal jail. If you look at those regulations versus the ones you have to follow for ICE, I somehow think in your office, because they have to come up to all of these regulations, that in the norm, it benefits all in the process, because you want to continue to keep up with these standards, so it makes it the norm. So you will always exceed in the area of the regular jail. Yeah. If that's like almost a good analysis.
You know, we do, and you know, I say this to a lot of people. I mean, we treat people how you would want to be treated. I mean, if your relative was in our jail, if my relative was in our jail, I'd want them to be treated right. I mean, that's how we treat people, and that's what we've lived by for quite a while. So,
thank you.
Any other questions?
One more thing about Nakamoto. They were also very complimentary of how we handled COVID so far. And they complimented our staff on their professionalism, which, you know, is a credit to them. The COVID, you know, we have had the COVID down at our downtown jail, which at this point is all gone. We had minimal symptoms, runny noses and coughs mainly, some temperatures, but so it is now. We're all back to COVID free. I know the jail administrators are gonna wring my neck for saying that, because I'm gonna put the hex on them, but at this point we are COVID free. The second, and I'll just be brief on the second inspection of the Office of Detention Oversight. To show you how long it was literally Monday through Friday of the week after Thanksgiving for 8 hours a day, and our closeout was Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. So they did not skimp. They did not say, hey, we're gonna get out here early today. I mean, it was 4 o'clock on Friday. So, you know, they took, you know, I mean, they looked at, you know, everything that we do down there. I can tell you that we had no deficiencies with the ODO, and we had 5 what are called findings. And those findings are basically things that are rectified fairly quickly. So the findings were all 5 of the findings were all policy language. In other words, they were things we were doing, they just weren't laid out in the policy correctly. So by the time they left at 4 o'clock on Friday, we virtually had those taken care of. We just added it to our policy. Like I said, things we were already doing just weren't correctly laid out in our policy. So again, minor things that, you know, were easily fixable, things that we were doing anyway, but, you know, they wanted all, you know,
No operational plan.
no deficiencies, no. So they made comments on our medical and our mental health, said they were very, very good, very, very impressed, and that we have a solid first responder program. And what that is our corrections staff are trained medically, so that if there is an incident or an issue, our correctional officers who are trained to be first responders can deal with that situation right away before, you know, they need to contact medical and so on. That's one of the few programs as far as first responders who are correctional officers nationwide. So they were very impressed with that. and they indicated that we had a great operation and they were very impressed. So certainly a credit to our correction staff and the job that they do every day. So
Animal control?
Animal control. So we actually, as of Monday, at the Bourbonnais Village Board meeting, have a signed contract with the Village of Bourbonnais. We are actually meeting with Bourbonnais officials tomorrow to work out the logistics, but we do have our first signed contract with one of the municipalities. And from now, starting yesterday, we are starting to work on the other municipalities such as Kankakee and the Village of Bradley, and move that forward. Now that we have one contract, we can kind of just not recreate the wheel and change a few names and numbers, and should be moving forward with that. So good.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Ms. Parker.
Sheriff, congratulations. This is something that we have been wanting to hear for almost 3 years now. So this is wonderful news. And I know that you are going to be able to move forward to get more contracts with more villages. So I am very happy right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So last couple things, flu shots. Every year our staff receives flu shots. We had 38 staff receive a flu shot. I mean, that's, when you're talking a couple hundred people, that's not very many. Certainly it's not mandatory. But we also offered it to the inmates who are in our custody, and we had actually 72 inmates take the flu shot. So, you know, in this pandemic era that we're in, I know they were encouraging people to take the flu shot. And some people just choose not to. I mean, I have never taken the flu shot. I did this year, only because I wanted to see my new grandson. So I got the ultimatum: either get the flu shot or you won't be able to see your grandson. So I was extorted to take the flu shot. But so yeah, we actually had 72 inmates take the flu shot, and like I said, hopefully that helps them when they get released from our custody. They're not catching the flu and spreading it and doing all the other stuff. Now, once we get the vaccine for COVID, we'll all be in good shape. So they say.
And that's a benefit to them at no charge.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Two other things. Cashless bail we talked about. I think Tom and Jim both brought it up, you know, in the Pretrial Fairness Act. That's going to be an issue that we're dealing with right now with this pending legislation. I actually have a meeting next week with a couple legislators that I will at least let them know what law enforcement side is, because I think one of the things that they do in Springfield, as we've all probably been affected by, is they make a lot of rules, but don't ask the people who are actually doing the work if they're going to work or not. So, and I'm sure the Pretrial Fairness Act is another one that, you know, somebody thought, hey, this is a great idea. I'm going to get some votes from people that and so, you know, if they don't ask the right people, the people who are actually doing the work, it becomes frustrating for us that has to do the work after the fact. So we have those meetings set up next week. And then lastly, part of that whole Fees and Assessment Act that we talked about earlier also affects Crime Stoppers. And I have a list here somewhere. You know, all this paperwork. Oh, there it is. So through November, because of that Fees and Assessment Act, we have brought in $855 to Crime Stoppers. Our total expenses for the year, in other words, when people call in a tip, they get paid $50 or whatever, we've paid out $3,670. We can't continue down that road because Crime Stoppers will run out of money. We've actually spent $2,800 more than we brought in. So, you know, Crime Stoppers is a valuable tool, not only for law enforcement, for the general public to get people off the street who should be off the street. And if we don't have money to pay, some people aren't going to call. And so we're going to be working on that as well. So that's all I got.
Okay, Any questions for the sheriff?
Chairman, I got a comment.
Mr. Fairfield. Go ahead, Mr. Fairfield.
Sheriff, I'd like to compliment you and you personally, and you and your correction and sworn staff for your professionalism every day, and not just on inspection day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now I gotta lug this book home.
Do you need help carrying it? Up next is the coroner, Mr. Gessner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, I'll ditto what all the other officials said. To welcome the new county board members, and anytime my door is always open. Anytime they want to come out here, we do have two offices out here. One is my main office. The other one is the morgue. I invite anyone that wants to see an autopsy. More than happy to bring them through there. Recently, we just had our state's attorney go through there for a few minutes. Other than that, it was nice to have him on.
You just couldn't resist, Bob, could you?
No.
Was it a few minutes or 8 seconds?
8 seconds. I gave you a good point. Anyhow, through my, did you go ahead and everything has been approved? You said, Chairman.
Go ahead.
This is November's been the busiest month we've ever had, and as long as I go back my 30-some years, we had 155 total calls, and we had actually our autopsies were down on that aspect. These were all a lot of medical calls that were either signed by myself or the doctor. Other than that, our summary report is the only correction that I want to make is that when the sheriff talks about vehicle accidents, you'll see mine is different than his. He had 9 and we have 13. As always, I try to have you remember that we get out of county accidents that come into our 2 hospitals here, where they died, and it becomes our case. So that's the reason why there's four difference in that. So our overdoses set our second. Sorry, here. Let me get that out here. This has been a bad year, not only with the coronavirus, is also with the overdoses. They kind of get passed in the background here. We have 49 cases right now and 1 pending. We know that 1 pending is going to be, so we call it 50 overdoses. 2017 we had 56, so we're right back up with the numbers, which is really disappointing to see this happen. I thought we were starting to have control over this, but this COVID has really kind of hurt us, not getting out to the public at all. Our average age is at 41. The youngest is at 17. The oldest is at 61. 36 males, 13 females, 39 Caucasians, 9 African American, 9 and 1 Asian. Basically, it's like a repeat every time. Is fentanyl is what's hitting us pretty hard. Cocaine has come back quite a bit, along with the heroin. So we're like I say, kind of disappointed, and that's where it is. It's costing us more money in our budget-wise, but we were lucky that we got that CARE Acting Fund helped us a lot with that expense there. We will be under budget, which is remarkable that along with my chief deputy working those grants, he's done a great job. So that's really positive for us. Last time we were 84,000 over on autopsies wise. This year we were able to handle that, so we're very pleased on that. So I just want to bring up, because I know you're going to bring it up on the COVID, so I'll just give you a little bit of information on that. We had 125 COVID deaths in Kankakee County in 2020, which stopped when our budget stopped. The first death occurred in April 1st of 2020, and the last one was on November 29th. We had 66 males, 59 females. 16% of the deaths were African Americans, 77% was Caucasians, 6% Hispanics, and 1% Asian. The average age is 80 years old. The youngest deceased was 38 and the oldest was 100. Most common ages 84 and 86 are as you'll see there's like 8 decedents in every of those particular age brackets. So I will post on my website there this whole entire data, and I hope you go to see that at KenkeCountyCorner.org. We'll have that all up to date, and where they died at basically was quite a high percentage at nursing homes. Other than that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Questions for the coroner, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Chairman. Is it still 100% of the cases have another substantial comorbidity? We have no deaths that are solely attributed to COVID, where there was no other underlying condition. Is it still the case from your perspective?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mr. Snipes.
That was one of my questions. The other one is that we are, what, about 113,000 in this county?
109.
About 109,000. And the deaths attributed here are 129?
125.
125, and that's since March, correct?
That's April 1st.
Since April 1st. So given that the population of individuals here, that's way less than even a 0.5% of people, or even less than that, of people that have actually passed away, and that's from supposedly COVID COVID complications is attributed to, but not the natural cause, is my understanding.
Correct. You're correct on that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Lear, go ahead.
I believe I'd read some news reports that the vaccine we're going to get is going to be distributed by the governor to the 50 counties that have the highest per capita death rate, and that indeed Kankakee County is among that number. We were in the 30s, 34, 37, something like that. Does the coroner know if any of that information is accurate?
Well, you haven't heard a lot on that, but what I read, the same thing you have there. We're going to be one of the first to get that in this area. I don't know who's going to get it yet, but yet I'm sure it's going to go into the nursing homes and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
And
any other questions?
One other point, Mr. Chairman, is this: when I say 50 overdoses, which is a lot, if you go by our population there, that overrides Will County and DuPage, basically, with their a little over 750,000 to 1 million in DuPage there. So it's quite an epidemic here in our area, and seeing it on the rise there. We're trying to do the best we can.
You do. Any other comments for the coroner? Mr. Hunter.
Bob, good job. Very descriptive. You mentioned that there are 50 overdoses. What drug of choice are they using? Do you have it broken out by fentanyl, cocaine, sleeping pills, whatever?
Well, I would say that a large percentage of it is the fentanyl. As I said before, I got criticized for it there, but I think there's a mixture in there, because you can't have 4 or 5 of these different drugs like cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, acenol, fentanyl, all in you without mixing it. So that's what we try to get out to the public on, is to those that are on that need to be watching what they're taking. I mean, it's hard to say that, but that's what's happening here. These people are getting, just like the sheriff has said, getting out of jail, coming back into our community. And we've had several of them, like, I don't know exactly the number of them, but several of them that have been in, just got out of jail and gone right back to what they used to do.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the coroner? Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion to combine the November 13th, the circuit clerk's report, the grand jury report, the public defender's report, probation report, and coroner's report. We have a first and a second. We'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Snipes? Ms. Peters?
Aye.
Ms. Parker? Ms. Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carricom?
Aye.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Aye.
Mr. Daryl Smith? Mr. Hunter? Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Kenneth Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Wheeler? Motion carries.
Is there any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business to come before the committee? Go ahead, Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess this is more of a head nod question. Would this committee like me to sit with our finance director and do an analysis on those vans and see how that fits into this or any future budget and bring it to finance?
Sure.
Just as a head nod saying you in theory agree with the need if you got 200,000 mile vans. Is that okay with the committee if we do the analysis and bring it this month to finance?
Yes.
Any objections?
Yes.
I'm not saying we're going to pull the trigger, but if the numbers work, finance will be able to
That's
make,
why I asked
yeah.
if he had prices early.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business to come before the committee? I'll take a motion to adjourn by
Adjourn.
Mr. Long, second by Ms. Peters, or Tinker Parker, pardon me. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.